The Empire attacked humanity first. Across the galaxy, our voice declared run while you can. Part 1, The Day Fire Fell. Admiral Sung Ho stood on the command deck of the orbital station and looked down at Earth. The blue planet turned slowly below him. Clouds moved over the oceans. City lights sparkled on the dark side. It was beautiful. It was home. And in exactly 4 minutes, everything would change forever. The alarm came without warning. Red lights filled the room. Officers shouted at their screens. Sung Ho walked calmly to the main display and felt his blood turn cold. 50 ships had appeared from nowhere. They were huge, black, and covered with weapons. They hung in space like angry gods waiting to pass judgment. No one on Earth had ever seen ships like these. No one knew they existed. "Admiral," his communications officer said, her voice was shaking. "They are not responding to any signal. We have tried every language, every frequency. They are just waiting." Sung Ho studied the alien ships. They were arranged in a battle formation. This was not a peaceful visit. This was not first contact. This was an invasion. "How long until our defense fleet can reach them?" he asked. 20 minutes, sir." 20 minutes. It might as well be 20 years. The alien ships moved. Their weapons glowed with strange energy. And then, without a single word of warning, they fired. Sung Ho watched the beams of light race toward Earth. They hit Seoul first, his home city, the city where his mother still lived, the city where he grew up playing in the streets with his friends. In 1 second, a flash of white light. In the next second, nothing but fire and smoke rising into the sky. He gripped the railing so hard his knuckles turned white. His face showed nothing. Inside, something broke, and something else, something harder, took its place. Tokyo was next, then New York, then London. The alien ships fired again and again. They did not aim at military bases. They aimed at civilians, at families, at children running home from school. This was not war. This was murder. "Admiral," someone said, "what do we do?" Sung Ho turned to face his crew. These were young men and women, scientists, engineers, soldiers. They were terrified. They looked at him like children looking at their father during a storm. They needed him to be strong, so he would be strong. "Wake the sleeping giant," he said quietly. The officers looked confused. Only a few people in the world knew what those words meant. Sung Ho was one of them. Deep beneath the mountains of several countries, hidden facilities began to activate. These were secrets kept for 100 years, weapons that Earth's governments had built in case of exactly this situation, weapons that used technology most humans did not know existed, weapons designed for a war that everyone hoped would never come. The war had come. 3,000 kilometers away, Dr. Park was running through the underground hallways of the Global Defense Research Institute. She was a small woman with tired eyes and messy hair. She had not slept in 30 hours. Now she would not sleep for much longer. Her laboratory was chaos. Screens showed images of burning cities. Her assistants were crying. Some were trying to call their families. Most calls did not connect. The communication networks were overwhelmed with millions of people all trying to reach their loved ones at the same time. Pushed through the crowd to her main computer, a message was waiting. It was from the alien ships. She opened it. The message was simple. It had been translated by the computer into Korean. It said, "Your planet now belongs to the Empire. You will surrender all weapons and leaders within 1 hour. Resistance will result in complete destruction. This is your only warning." Read the message 3 times. She thought about her sister In. She thought about her old professor who lived in Tokyo, who was probably dead now. She thought about the millions of people who had done nothing wrong and were now burning because some aliens decided Earth looked nice. She pressed delete. The message disappeared. She did not reply. There would be no surrender. There would be no negotiation. They had attacked without warning, without reason, without mercy. They would receive the same in return. On the orbital station, Admiral Sung-ho received word that the hidden weapons were online. He smiled, but it was not a happy smile. It was the smile of a man who has accepted that he will probably die and has decided to take his enemies with him. "Target their lead ship," he ordered. "Fire everything we have." The battle for Earth had begun. Captain Han 1 was flying his fighter through the chaos when the alien beams nearly hit him. He was 28 years old. He had dreamed of being a pilot since he was a child. He had never imagined his first real combat would be against creatures from another world. His squadron was small, 12 fighters against 50 warships. It was suicide. But retreat was not an option. Every minute they kept the aliens busy was another minute for people on Earth to reach shelters. "Stay tight," he said into his radio. "Aim for their weapon systems. Don't be heroes, just survive." His pilots responded with shaky voices. They were scared, so was he, but fear was useful. Fear kept you sharp. Fear kept you alive. He dove toward the nearest alien ship and fired. His weapons were primitive compared to theirs, bullets and missiles against energy shields, but something strange happened. His bullets went through the shield. They punched holes in the alien metal. The aliens had not expected this. Their shields were designed to stop energy weapons. They had never faced a species that still used simple projectiles. One laughed. It was a crazy laugh, the laugh of a man who has found hope in hopeless darkness. "They can't stop our bullets," he shouted. "Hit them with everything." Around Earth the battle raged. Alien ships fell. Human ships fell. Cities burned. People died. But humanity did not surrender. Humanity did not kneel. Humanity fought with everything they had, with technology, with courage, with pure stubborn refusal to accept defeat. As the first night of the war ended, the commanders looked at each other in confusion. They had conquered over 2,000 species. Every single one had surrendered after the first bombardment. Every single one had seen the power of the and given up hope. But these humans were different. They had lost millions of people. Their cities were burning. Their military was outnumbered. And still they fought. Still they resisted. Still they refused to accept the obvious truth that they could not win. They did not understand. They could not understand. They had forgotten something important. They had forgotten that hope is not logical, courage is not calculated, and some species, when pushed to the edge of extinction, do not surrender. They bite back. Admiral Sung-ho stood on his damaged station as the sun rose over a wounded Earth. Smoke covered half the planet. The death toll was in the millions and still rising. But 8 alien ships were destroyed, 8 of 50. It was not much, but it was something. He opened a channel to every human ship, every military base, every person still fighting. His voice was tired but steady. "This is Admiral Sung-ho. The enemy came to conquer us. They came to make us slaves. They came thinking we would be easy prey. They were wrong. We are not prey, we are not slaves, we are humanity, and we do not surrender, not today, not ever, fight on." Across the burning world, people heard his words. Soldiers who had lost everything picked up their weapons. Scientists who had watched their work destroyed began building again. Ordinary people who had never held a gun volunteered to fight. They had made a terrible mistake. They had attacked humanity first, and now humanity would make them pay for it. The war had only just begun. The Empire attacked humanity first. Across the galaxy, our voice declared, "Run while you can." Part 2. The Nature of the Beast. 1 week had passed since the first attack. 1 week of fire, death, and constant battle. The fleet still hung in orbit around Earth, but now there were only 35 ships left. 15 had fallen to human weapons, and the commanders were starting to feel something they had not felt in centuries. Fear. Fleet commander stood on the bridge of his warship and stared at the reports. They made no sense. His species had conquered 2,000 worlds. They had crushed armies, destroyed civilizations, and built an empire that covered half the galaxy. No one had ever resisted them like this. "How is this possible?" he asked his officers. "They are primitive, they still use chemical propulsion, they still use solid projectiles. How are they hurting us?" No one had an answer. On Earth, General Bora walked through the ruins of what used to be a shopping center. Bodies were everywhere. Some were human, some were. The alien soldiers had landed 3 days ago, expecting easy victory. They had found something else entirely. Bora was 45 years old. She had spent her entire adult life in the military. She had trained for every possible enemy, but she had never trained for aliens. No one had, so she had improvised. And improvisation, she discovered, was something humans did very well. "Report," she said to her aide. "The ground forces have taken the Eastern District, but they are losing soldiers faster than expected. Our guerrilla teams are hitting them every few hours. They cannot sleep. They cannot rest. Every shadow might hide an attacker." Bora nodded. This was her strategy. They were stronger, better armed, more advanced. But they were not patient. They expected quick victory. They did not understand what it meant to fight humans. Humans were persistent hunters. Their ancestors had chased prey across endless plains for days and days until the prey collapsed from exhaustion. Humans did not need to be stronger. They just needed to keep going. They just needed to never stop. They would learn this lesson the hard way. In a hospital that had been converted into a command center, Ambassador O was questioning a captured soldier. The alien was tall, with gray skin and 4 eyes. It looked at her with a mixture of pain and confusion. "Why do you keep fighting?" they asked. "You cannot win. Your planet is burning, your people are dying. Surrender and we will make the pain stop." Leaned forward, she was a diplomat. She had spent her career talking, negotiating, finding peaceful solutions. But there was no peace to be found here, only war. "Let me explain something to you," she said calmly. "On our world there is a concept called spite. It means doing something not because it helps you, but because it hurts your enemy, even if it costs you everything, even if it destroys you, as long as it destroys them too." They looked confused. "That is illogical. Self-preservation should be the highest priority." Smiled, it was not a kind smile. "You killed our children, you burned our homes. You gave us no warning, no chance to surrender peacefully, no mercy. And now you want us to be logical. No, we will fight you, we will hurt you. And even if we lose, even if every last human dies, we will make sure you remember us forever. We will make sure you regret ever coming to our world." The soldier was silent for a long moment. Then it said something that surprised her. "You are terrifying," it whispered. "Your species is terrifying." High above Earth, Lieutenant was preparing for his final mission. He was 26 years old. His family had lived in Seoul. His parents, his sister, his grandmother who made the best food in the world. They were all gone now, turned to ash in the first bombardment. He had not cried, he had not screamed. He had simply climbed into his fighter and started killing ships. In the past week, he had shot down more enemy fighters than any other pilot. His commanders called him a hero. He did not feel like a hero. He felt empty. He felt like a weapon. Today, his squadron had one job: destroy the command ship, the ship that coordinated all enemy operations. If they could kill it, the invasion would fall into chaos. "This is a suicide mission," his commander had told him. "The chances of survival are very low." Had shrugged. "What survival? My survival? I died with my family. This body is just finishing what needs to be done." His squadron flew toward the command ship. Enemy fighters swarmed around them, dodged and weaved, his hands moving faster than thought. He had always been a good pilot. Now he was something more. Now he was death itself. One by one, his squadron fell. Good pilots, good people. They died so he could get closer. He honored their sacrifice by not stopping. His fighter was damaged, engines failing, weapons empty, but he was close now, so close. He aimed his ship at the command bridge and accelerated. The commander had 1 second to see the human fighter racing toward him, 1 second to understand what was about to happen, 1 second to feel terror. Then impact, explosion, fire. But did not die. His cockpit section broke away from the rest of the ship. Emergency systems kept him alive. He crashed through the bridge, tumbled through corridors, and finally stopped in a storage area. He was bleeding. His arm was broken. He could barely see. But he was alive, and he was inside the enemy command ship. He pulled out his sidearm, a simple pistol, old technology, nothing compared to weapons. It would be enough. For the next 3 hours fought through the ship. He killed soldiers with his pistol, with a knife, with his bare hands. He was one human against hundreds of aliens. He should have died a dozen times, but he did not die. He kept going. He kept fighting, because stopping was not an option. When human boarding teams finally reached the ship, they found sitting in the engine room. The engines were destroyed. He had sabotaged them with his last grenade. Around him were the bodies of 47 soldiers. "Lieutenant," the rescue team leader said, his voice filled with awe. "How?" Looked up, his face was covered in blood. Some of it was his, most of it was not. "They killed my family," he said simply. "I returned the favor." News of survival spread quickly. He became a symbol, a legend. If one wounded pilot could do this much damage, what could all of humanity do together? In the fleet, commanders argued about what to do next. They had lost half their ships. The ground invasion was stalling. And worst of all, their soldiers were starting to fear the humans. Every shadow might hide an attacker. Every damaged ship might contain a suicidal pilot ready to crash into them. Fleet commander made a decision. He opened a communication channel to the. "We need reinforcements," he said. "Send more ships, many more ships, these humans. They are not like other species. They do not surrender, they do not give up, they fight like. He searched for the right word. In the language, there was no word for what humans were. They had never encountered anything like this. "They fight like monsters," he finally said. "They fight like creatures who have nothing to lose. We need more ships or we need to leave. There is no middle option." On Earth, General Bora received a report about the transmission. She smiled. "They are calling for help," she said. "Good, let them bring more ships. Let them bring their entire fleet. We will destroy those too." Her aide looked worried. "General, we have lost so much. Can we really keep fighting?" Bora looked out the window at the burning city. Somewhere in the distance, she could hear gunfire. The fight was still going on. It would keep going on until one side was completely destroyed. "We are humans," she said. "We survived ice ages. We survived plagues. We survived wars that killed millions. We always survive. And now we have a new enemy, a new challenge, and we will survive this too." She turned back to her command table. There was work to be done, plans to make, enemies to kill. "Tell all units to prepare for the next phase," she ordered. "They think they are the hunters. It is time to show them that they are the prey." The second week of the war was about to begin, and humanity was just getting started. The Empire attacked humanity first. Across the galaxy, our voice declared, "Run while you can." Part 3, The Galaxy Watches. 3 months had passed. Earth was wounded but alive. The first fleet was destroyed, but the second fleet was coming. 500 warships, 10 times larger than the first. Emperor himself had ordered it. The humans would be crushed. The embarrassment would end. Across the galaxy, other species watched with growing interest. News of the battle had spread through trade routes, spy networks, and whispered conversations in slave quarters. For the first time in 10,000 years, someone was fighting back against the Empire. On a small moon far from Earth, Elder Myra sat in her simple room and watched the broadcasts. She was very old. Her blue skin was wrinkled, her forearms weak with age. She was one of the last free members of a species conquered by the 800 years ago. Her people had surrendered after one battle, They had seen the power and accepted defeat. Now they worked as slaves in mines and factories. Their culture was dying. Their language was forbidden. Their hope was gone. But these humans, these strange, soft creatures from a small blue planet, they did not surrender. Myra watched videos of human soldiers charging into battle. She watched pilots crashing their ships into enemy vessels. She watched civilians picking up weapons and fighting beside their military. She watched and she wept. "This is what we should have done," she whispered to herself. "This is what we should have been." She was not alone. Across the galaxy, millions of enslaved beings watched the same broadcasts. They saw the impossible happening. They saw hope being born. On Earth, Intelligence Officer Jin sat in a dark room surrounded by computer screens. His job was to monitor alien communications, to find useful information in the endless noise of space. And lately, he had been finding something very interesting. Fear. The commanders were afraid. Their messages to each other were full of worry, confusion, and doubt. They could not understand why humans kept fighting. They could not understand how a primitive species was hurting them so badly. But the most interesting messages were the secret ones. The ones passed between admirals when they thought no one was listening. These messages used words that had never seen in language before. He had to invent new translations. "We should reconsider this campaign," one admiral had written. "The humans are not worth the cost." "The Emperor will not accept withdrawal," another replied. "We must continue." "Then we should request additional support. 3 fleets, not 1. Overwhelm them completely." "That would strip defenses from 12 systems. The Emperor will never approve." "Then what do you suggest?" A long pause in the conversation. Then finally an answer. "I suggest we hope the humans make a mistake, because right now I do not see how we win this." Smiled when he read this. He printed the conversation and brought it to his new commander. Fleet Admiral was 60 years old. She had been retired before the war, enjoying peaceful days with her. Now she was in charge of all human military forces, the most important job in human history. And she was very, very good at it. "They are afraid," she said after reading the message. "Good. Fear makes people make mistakes." "Admiral," said carefully, "the Second Fleet will arrive in 3 weeks, 500 ships. We barely survived 50. Nodded, "Yes, which is why we are not going to wait for them." She pressed a button on her desk. A hologram appeared showing a star map. A route was highlighted in red. It led from Earth to a point 3 systems away. "This is the supply station for this sector," she explained. "All their ships, all their weapons, all their food comes through here. If we destroy it, the Second Fleet will arrive with limited supplies. They will be forced to fight quickly or retreat." Stared at the map. "But we do not have ships that can travel that far. We do not have faster-than-light technology." Smiled. It was the smile of a teacher about to reveal a wonderful secret. "We did not have it," she said. "Past tense. Dr. Park and her team have been studying the captured ships. Yesterday, they finished building our first faster-than-light engine." Felt his heart stop, then start again, beating faster than ever. "We can go to them," he whispered. "We can attack them in their own territory." Exactly. Humanity is no longer trapped on Earth. Humanity can go anywhere, and they are about to learn that there is no safe place in the galaxy, not anymore. 3 days later, the first human ship with a working jump drive launched from Earth orbit. It was small, fast, and packed with weapons. Its crew was 12 volunteers who knew they might never come home. Captain Min Lee commanded the ship. She was 32 years old, with short black hair and calm eyes. She had volunteered because she believed in the mission. She believed humanity could win. She believed that attack was better than defense. The ship jumped, space twisted around them, stars blurred into lines of light, and then suddenly they were somewhere else. The supply station hung in space before them. It was massive, bigger than any human structure. Ships came and went constantly, carrying supplies for the war against Earth. They had no idea a human ship was watching them. "Begin recording," Min ordered. "Document everything. Ship types, patrol patterns, defense systems. We need to know exactly how to destroy this place." For 6 hours they watched and recorded. Then, just before jumping back to Earth, Min made a decision. "Fire one missile," she said. "Target their main antenna array." "Captain," her weapons officer asked, surprised. "That will alert them to our presence." "Exactly. I want them to know we were here. I want them to know that nowhere is safe." The missile launched. It crossed the distance in seconds and hit the antenna array perfectly. Not enough damage to cripple the station, just enough to send a message. "We can reach you, we can hurt you, and this is just the beginning." The ship jumped back to Earth. When they arrived, Fleet Admiral was waiting for them. "Well done," she said. "Now we plan the real attack." Across the galaxy, news of the human strike spread faster than light. They had been attacked in their own territory. Their supply station had been damaged by a species they were trying to exterminate. The impossible had happened. On the small moon, Elder Myra heard the news and felt something she had not felt in 800 years. Hope. She called together the other survivors. There were only a few dozen of them, old and weak and forgotten, but they still had connections. They still had friends among other enslaved species. "The humans are showing us a path," she told them. "A path we were too afraid to walk, but maybe it is not too late. Maybe we can still help. Maybe we can still fight." The other looked at her with wide eyes. Fight? They had accepted their fate long ago. They had given up. But Myra had not given up, not anymore. "Spread the word," she ordered. "Tell every slave, every prisoner, every conquered being in the galaxy. The humans are fighting, and if we help them, if we rise up together, we might finally be free." It was a small beginning. A few old aliens on a forgotten moon sending messages into the darkness. But great changes often start small. Great fires often start with a single spark. And the spark was spreading. On Earth, humanity prepared for the Second Fleet. They built ships as fast as they could. They trained soldiers day and night. They turned their entire civilization into a war machine. But they also did something else, something they never expected. They broadcast messages of hope. Every day, Doctor's communication team sent signals into space, messages in every language they could translate, messages to the enslaved species of the galaxy. "You are not alone," the messages said. "We are fighting. You can fight too. Together we can be free." Most of the messages went unanswered, but some came back, small signals from hidden transmitters, whispers of support from beings who had never dared to speak against the before. The galaxy was waking up, and they did not even know it. Fleet Admiral stood on the bridge of her command ship and looked at the stars. The Second Fleet would arrive soon. The real fight was about to begin. "Are we ready?" her aide asked. Thought about the question. Were they ready? No, not really. They were outnumbered, outmatched in every way, but they had something they did not have. They had hope, they had anger, and they had allies they did not even know about yet. "We are ready enough," she said, "and ready enough will have to do." The stars seemed to shine brighter than before, as if the galaxy itself was watching, waiting to see what would happen next. Whatever it would change everything. The Empire attacked humanity first, across the galaxy. Our voice declared, "Run while you can." Part 4. The Doctrine of Total Response. 8 months had passed since the war began. 3 invasion fleets had come to Earth. 3 fleets had been destroyed. Emperor sat on his throne and felt something cold in his chest. It took him a long time to recognize the feeling. It was doubt. For 50 years he had ruled the greatest empire in the galaxy. 2,000 conquered species, 10,000 worlds, trillions of slaves. His word was law, his armies were invincible. No one dared challenge him. Until now. These humans must be destroyed, he declared to his council. Not conquered, not enslaved, destroyed. Every last one, they are too dangerous to exist. His admirals nodded. They had reached the same conclusion. The humans were different from other species. They did not just fight to survive. They fought to win. They learned from every battle. They adapted faster than any enemy they had ever faced. And worst of all, they inspired others. Reports were coming in from across the empire. Slave rebellions, sabotage, mysterious accidents in factories and mines. Nothing major yet, nothing that could not be controlled, but the pattern was clear. The conquered species were watching the humans. They were learning. They were hopping. Hope was the most dangerous weapon in the galaxy. They had spent 10,000 years eliminating it, and now these humans were spreading it like a disease. I want total war, Emperor commanded. Every available ship, every soldier, every weapon, send them all to Earth. End this. On Earth, Supreme Commander Ho watched the reports from spy satellites. More ships were coming. Many more. The largest fleet in history was being assembled. He was 65 years old, elected to lead unified Earth when the old governments fell apart during the first invasion. He had been a professor before the war, a historian. He knew how civilizations rose and fell. He knew that this moment would decide whether humanity survived or became another forgotten species. He addressed Earth from a bunker deep beneath the mountains. "Citizens of Earth," he said, his voice calm and strong, "the enemy has declared total war against us. They want to destroy us completely. They do not want surrender anymore. They want extinction." He paused to let the words sink in. "I say good, now we know where we stand. Now we know there is no middle path. We fight or we die, and we choose to fight." He held up a document. The camera zoomed in on the title, Doctrine of Total Response. "From this moment forward, Earth will operate under this doctrine. Every attack against us will be answered. Every world that supports the will feel our response. We will not wait to be hit. We will strike first. We will strike hard. And we will never stop striking until this war is over." Across Earth, people watched and listened. They were tired. They were afraid. But they were also angry. They had killed their families, burned their cities, tried to destroy everything they loved, and now they wanted to finish the job. Not today, not ever. In a factory complex that had once made cars, engineer Wu checked her latest creation. She was 29 years old, small and quiet, with glasses that were always sliding down her nose. Before the war, she designed racing vehicles. Now she designed warships. "Is it ready?" asked Fleet Admiral, who had come to inspect the fleet. Nodded nervously. "Yes, Admiral, 200 ships. They are rough, not elegant like the vessels, but they work, and they hit hard." The ships lined the factory floor. They were ugly things, all angles and weapons with no thought for appearance. They looked like something assembled from spare parts by people who were very angry, which was exactly what they were. "Beautiful," Admiral said softly. "They are beautiful." Captain Min Lee would command the first battle group. Her ship, the Defiance, was the largest of the human vessels. It was not beautiful either, but it carried enough weapons to destroy a small moon, and its crew was ready to use every single one. "Where are we going?" her pilot asked as they prepared to launch. "Everywhere," Min answered. "We are going everywhere." The human fleet launched, 200 ships racing toward the stars. For the first time, humanity was not defending. Humanity was attacking. Their first target was a mining colony 3 systems away. The colony used slave labor from 6 different conquered species. The slaves worked until they died, then were replaced with fresh captives. It was a place of suffering and despair. It was about to become something else. The human fleet arrived without warning. They overwhelmed the small defense force in minutes. Then, instead of destroying the colony, they landed. Min walked through the mining tunnels with a squad of soldiers. The slaves stared at them with wide, fearful eyes. They had never seen humans before. They did not know if these strange creatures were friends or new masters. A young alien, barely more than a child, approached Min carefully. He had green skin and 3 eyes. His body was covered with scars from the whips of his overseers. "Are you here to kill us?" he asked in broken language. Min knelt down to meet his eyes. She reached into her pack and pulled out a ration bar, real food, not the recycled waste that fed their slaves. "We are here to free you," she said. "They attacked our world. Now we are fighting back, and we will free every slave we find, because that is what we do, because no one deserves to live like this." The child took the food. He took a bite. Tears ran down his face as he chewed. He had forgotten what real food tasted like. Behind him, other slaves began to emerge from the shadows. Hundreds of them. Thousands. They looked at the humans with something they had not felt in generations. "Hope." "Why?" one of them asked. She was old, her body bent from years of hard labor. "Why would you risk your lives for us? You do not know us. We are nothing to you." Min thought about the question. Why were they here? They could have destroyed the colony from orbit. It would have been safer, easier, but that was not the human way. "Because it was wrong," she finally answered. "What they did to you was wrong, and when we see something wrong, we try to make it right. That is who we are. That is what humanity means." The old alien stared at her for a long moment. Then she did something unexpected. She bowed deeply, with respect. "We will remember this," she said. "All of us will remember, and one day we will repay this debt." News of the liberation spread across the galaxy faster than any ship could travel. The humans had freed slaves. The humans had risked their own safety to save strangers. The humans had done something no one else had ever done. On the small moon, Elder Myra received the news and wept with joy. Her network of contacts exploded with activity. Species that had been silent for centuries began to speak. Secret plans began to form. The rebellion was growing. On the Emperor received reports of the colony's liberation. He smashed his throne with his fist, cracking the ancient stone. "Find them," he roared. "Find the human fleet and destroy them." But the human fleet was not easy to find. They did not stay in one place. They hit targets and disappeared. They freed slaves and vanished into space. They were ghosts with guns, shadows with ships. And every victory made them stronger. The freed slaves told stories. Stories of the strange, soft creatures who risked everything for strangers. Stories of a species that believed in something called freedom. Stories that spread from world to world, from slave to slave, from heart to heart. Supreme Commander Ho received a report from Fleet Admiral. 3 more systems had fallen. 5,000 more slaves had been freed. The enemy was being pushed back. "We are winning," his aide said, surprised. "How is this possible?" Ho looked at the star map showing human victories. He thought about the enemy fleet still coming toward Earth. He thought about all the battles still to come. "We are not winning yet," he said carefully, "but we are surviving, and as long as we survive, we can fight, and as long as we fight, we can win." He turned to address his command staff. "They thought this would be easy. They thought we would surrender like all the others. They were wrong. Now they think they can overwhelm us with numbers. They are wrong about that too, because we are not fighting alone anymore." He pointed to the map, where small symbols represented the growing rebellion across the galaxy. "Every slave we free becomes an ally. Every world we liberate becomes a friend. They built their empire on fear. We are building something different. We are building it on hope." In the darkness of space, the war fleet continued its journey toward Earth. Thousands of ships, millions of soldiers, the greatest military force in galactic history. But Earth was ready, humanity was ready, and across the galaxy others were ready too. The final battle was coming, and nothing would ever be the same again. The Empire attacked humanity first. Across the galaxy, our voice declared, "Run while you can." Part 5, Run While You Can. 14 months after the first attack, Admiral Sung Ho stood on the bridge of the largest fleet humanity had ever built. 2,000 human ships stretched out behind him, their weapons ready, their crews determined. Another 500 ships flew beside them, crewed by freed slaves who had chosen to fight alongside their liberators. It was time. "Set course for the," Sung Ho ordered. His navigator looked up, eyes wide. "Admiral, are you sure? The is defended by their entire remaining fleet. Thousands of ships. It would be suicide." Sung Ho smiled. It was the same smile he had worn on the first day of the war, when he had ordered the counterattack against the first invasion fleet. The smile of a man who had already accepted death and found freedom in that acceptance. "Maybe," he said, "but if we do not strike now, while they are confused and frightened, they will rebuild. They will come back stronger, and next time they will not make the same mistakes." He turned to address his crew. 14 months ago, these aliens came to our world without warning. They killed millions of our people. They burned our cities. They tried to break us, but we did not break. We fought back. We survived. And now we are going to end this war. The fleet jumped, space twisted, stars blurred, and then they were there in the heart of space, staring at the enemy. The fleet was waiting for them. Thousands of ships, just as the navigator had warned. The largest military force in the galaxy gathered to defend their empire's heart. "Admiral," the tactical officer said, his voice shaking, "they outnumber us 3-1. "I know," Sung Ho replied calmly, "but numbers are not everything. We have something they do not have." "What is that, sir?" "We have a message to deliver." On Earth, Dr. Park made the final adjustments to her greatest creation. It was not a weapon. It was something more powerful than any weapon. It was a communication array that could broadcast to every corner of the galaxy simultaneously. Every ship, every station, every world with a receiver would hear the message. They could not block it. They could not stop it. Once sent, it would spread across the stars like ripples across a pond. Supreme Commander Ho stood beside her. "Is it ready?" he asked. Nodded, "Ready. One button and the entire galaxy will hear us." "And who will deliver the message?" Gestured to a young woman standing nearby. She was small, with long black hair and tired eyes. She wore a simple uniform with no medals or decorations. She did not look like a soldier. She looked like someone's daughter, someone's sister, someone who should be living a peaceful life instead of fighting a war. Her name was Ryu, and she had lost everything. She volunteered, explained. Her entire family died in the first bombardment, Seoul. She was visiting a friend in the countryside that day. When she came home, there was nothing left. Ho looked at the young woman. "Why do you want to do this?" Met his eyes. There was no anger in her gaze, no hatred, just calm, quiet determination. "Because my family cannot speak anymore," she said. "So I will speak for them. I will speak for everyone who cannot speak. I will tell the galaxy what humanity is, what we believe, what we will do to anyone who threatens those we love." Ho was silent for a moment, then he nodded. "The galaxy will hear you," he said. "Make it count." In orbit around the battle had begun. Human ships and ships exchanged fire in a dance of destruction. Explosions lit up space like stars being born. Ships died on both sides. Admiral Sung Ho watched the battle unfold. They were fighting hard. They knew this was their last stand. If they fell, their empire would collapse. The conquered species would rise up. Everything they had built over 10,000 years would burn. But the humans were fighting harder. "Admiral," his communications officer called out, "we are receiving a signal from Earth. Doctor says the array is ready. She is waiting for your command." Sung Ho took a deep breath. This was it, the moment everything changed. "Tell her to broadcast." On Earth, press the button. Across the galaxy, receivers activated. Trillions of beings stopped what they were doing and listened. Ryu stood before the camera. She took a deep breath, and she began to speak. My name is Ryu. I am a human from planet Earth. I am speaking to everyone in the galaxy who can hear my voice. Please listen. This message is important. Her voice was calm and steady. It did not shake. It did not waver. 14 months ago, the Empire attacked our world without warning. They killed millions of our people. They burned our cities. They destroyed our homes. They gave us no chance to surrender, no chance to negotiate. They simply came and started killing. She paused. They expected us to give up. Every other species did. 2,000 species conquered by the 2,000 species that surrendered and became slaves. The thought we would be the same. They were wrong. In the battle above, the human ships pushed forward. They took losses, but they did not retreat. They fought with everything they had. We do not surrender, continued. Not when we are attacked without reason, not when our children are murdered, not when everything we love is threatened. We are humans, we fight, we protect, we never give up. Across the galaxy, enslaved beings listened. They heard the words, they felt the emotion, and something stirred inside them, something that had been dormant for too long. To the Empire I say this: you attacked us first. You chose this war. You chose to make us your enemy, and now you will see what that means. We are coming for you, not for revenge, not for conquest, for justice, for every species you have enslaved, for every world you have destroyed, for every being you have tortured and killed. Emperor listened from his throne room. His hands gripped the armrests so tight they cracked. His eyes were wide with something he had never felt before. Fear. And to every other empire, continued, her voice growing stronger, every tyrant, every species that preys on the weak, I say this: watch what happens next. Watch what happens to those who attack the innocent. Watch what happens to those who think cruelty is strength. She leaned closer to the camera. Her eyes seemed to look directly at every being in the galaxy. This is humanity. We protect our own. We protect the helpless. We stand up for those who cannot stand up for themselves. And if you make yourself our enemy, if you threaten those under our protection, there is only one thing you can do. Her voice dropped to almost a whisper, but somehow it felt louder than thunder. Run while you can. The broadcast ended. For a long moment, the galaxy was silent. Then everything changed. On 100 worlds, slaves rose up against their masters. On 1,000 ships, conquered beings turned against their officers. The rebellion that had been building for months exploded all at once. Above the human fleet pressed its advantage. They were distracted, confused, terrified. Their commanders had heard the message. Their soldiers had heard the message. Everyone knew what was coming. Admiral Sung-ho watched as ships began to break formation. Some were trying to fight. Some were trying to run. None were succeeding. All ships, he ordered, continue the attack. Show no mercy. End this. In his throne room, Emperor sat alone. His guards had fled. His advisors had abandoned him. The sounds of battle echoed through the corridors of his palace. He watched the human fleet approaching on his screens. He watched his empire crumbling. He watched everything he had built over 50 years falling apart in a single day. What have we done? He whispered to himself. What have we awakened? There was no one left to answer him. The doors of his throne room burst open. Human soldiers poured in, weapons ready. Behind them came soldiers from other species, former slaves, beings who had been waiting generations for this moment. Leading them was a young human officer. His uniform was damaged, his face covered in dirt and blood, but his eyes were clear and determined. Emperor, the officer said, you are under arrest. You will answer for your crimes against humanity and against every species your empire has enslaved. Looked at the soldiers surrounding him. He looked at the humans who had destroyed his fleet. his empire, his world. He looked at the freed slaves who would finally have their revenge. How, he asked. We have ruled this galaxy for 10,000 years. How did you do this? The young officer holstered his weapon. He walked forward until he was standing right in front of the Emperor. You attacked the wrong species, he said simply. You attacked humanity, and that was the worst mistake you ever made. Outside, the battle was ending. The fleet was destroyed or captured. The was falling. The Empire was collapsing. And across the galaxy, beings of 100 species heard the news and celebrated. Freedom had come. Hope had won. Humanity had kept its promise. They had made the pay, and they had shown the galaxy what happened to those who attacked the innocent. Run while you can. It was not just a threat, it was a promise that humanity would always keep. The war was almost over, but the story was just beginning.